The inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. Over the last 9 weeks, we have devoted all of Newsmakers to the election this Tuesday. We have covered everything from the library levy to Issue 4, the proposal to change the Cincinnati pension system, the Oak Hill School levy to candidates for Cincinnati City Council, and for the Cincinnati Board of Education. Back in September, we began with the primary race for Cincinnati Mayor. This morning, we conclude with the two candidates that came out of that election. Roxanne Qualls has served a total of 14 years on City Council from 1991 until 1999, and again from 2007 until today. Between 1993 and 99, she served as mayor. Ms. Qualls is 60 years old and grew up in northern Kentucky. Before being elected to City Council, she served as the director of Cincinnati Office of Ohio Citizen Action, executive director of Women Helping Women, and the director of Northern Kentucky Rape and Crisis Center. She earned a master's degree in public administration from Harvard University. She now works as a real estate agent. John Cranley grew up in Price Hill and earned both a law degree and a master's in divinity from Harvard University. He was first elected to Cincinnati City Council in 2000 and was re-elected 3 additional times. He resigned from council in order to fully participate as a developer in the Incline District in Price Hill. He is the co-founder of the Innocence Project at the University of Cincinnati College of Law and practices law with Keating, Muthing, and Kleekamp. Both are Democrats. Welcome back to Newsmakers many times for both of you, so it's good to, and I want to just start out before we go any further and recognize to everybody who's watching. These two candidates, you have been willing to come together. I know we were talking ahead of time, you say maybe 12 or more, you know, real debates or these kinds of in-depth discussions, but there's been a lot of candidate nights and forums where you've appeared together and and I really appreciate that. That sort of willingness to talk with people is not always the case, and the voters should be very happy that you have done that. So, being that, let's
well, thank you for the compliment before
before I begin asking you questions. Roxanne, let's begin with you. Okay. You've served as vice mayor for Mark Mallory. What are the aspects of the Mallory's administrative style and office of mayor that you would consciously try to continue, and how would you be different than the current mayor?
I think that Mark has been a really terrific mayor for the city of Cincinnati, and he has had a vision of really making sure that we continue to invest in things that bring jobs, create opportunities for work, as well as bring new residents. And so whether you're talking the banks and his role in making sure it happened in partnership with the business community, as well as over the Rhine, it's very important. But I think stylistically, he has also brought a sense of decorum, as well as a sense of order to City Hall, because when he came, you know, there were a lot of complaints about just the chaos at council. So I think that is important to continue. I think, however, stylistically what would be different is that I would be someone who would reach out much more aggressively in terms of engaging the community, engaging with people, talking about the issues, and really seeing that the role of the mayor is on the important issues of the day to actually take a position and to work with people to bring them along.
Okay. John, same question with this added twist. In the hour-long debate that we did on Channel 12 about a month ago, it caught my ear all of a sudden. I think it was 5 times you cited Mayor Lucan, Charlie Lucan. And so same thing, same question, but with the coloration of, are there things that you would look back to Mayor Lucan and try to consciously include if you were mayor?
Well, yeah, well, first let me say that I enjoyed working with Mayor Mallory when I was on council with him for over 3 years. And I think that in particular, the Banks project got off the ground, and I was proud to be part of that effort, in part because of his leadership. I also think he's been a great advocate for the city, and it has done a great job of relifting our city's morale. The differences are really on the issues. You know, obviously, I think, you know, privatizing our parking meters to a for-profit company and putting all eggs in one streetcar basket.
And we're going to talk about those specifics.
Right, but I mean, you asked me what I would do differently. Right. I mean, clearly, and so has Roxanne, put an enormous amount of time and money into these two issues that I think are the wrong priorities for the city. So I have no doubt that Mayor Mallory loves the city, and he has been a great advocate for the city, but he's just, gotten off track with these two issues. Mayor Lucan and I served together, and he, of course, served in the 80s as mayor, and one of the things that I really liked about him was complete and total transparency at all times. And one of the things that I would critique Mayor Mallory about in the current administration is they have not been forthcoming on the cost of a streetcar. They weren't forthcoming on the reasons for the parking deal. They claimed it was to prevent police and fire layoffs, and then that wasn't true, and yet they still rushed forward with the deal. So I think we have to restore transparency in government, and I think that the Lucans really believe in that.
Is the transparency question, that quality that John's raising, is that related to your point about being more outgoing?
Well, I think that...
Because, Mayor Mallory has been accused of sort of where is he on a lot of times.
Well, I think that, as John has said, Mayor Mallory has aggressively promoted the city and has been an aggressive booster of the city and has really created a national attention to the city through the organizations he belongs to nationally as mayor of the city, and he's to be really commended for that. I do think, however, that one of the role of the mayor is to basically go out and talk to people and explain what's going on, and whether it is from streetcar to parking or to any other major issue of the day that impacts citizens, that the mayor is the spokesperson, as the advocate, the booster, the explainer.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about some of the specifics. On the parking deal, I have really two questions, and John, let's start with you this time. One, do you see it as a done deal, or do you think, like you talked about the streetcar, stopping the streetcar, do you think this is a done deal? And secondly, if it's not, if it is a done deal, even if it is a done deal, or maybe not, I don't know, given the way that you've attacked this and attacked the role of the port in this process, how's that going to affect your relationship with the Port Authority, and specifically Laura Brunner, going forward if you're elected mayor? Well,
first of all, I don't think it's a done deal. The lease says that the port has to deliver $85 million free and clear to the city. They, in typical fashion, the current administration, and by the way, when I say administration, I mean the manager and my opponent's leadership, not the port, are trying to pull the wool over the eyes of the citizens and act like now that the city has to build a garage that the port was supposed to build, that somehow we're still getting $85 million. So I believe that the lease is completely invalid, and I intend to act that way and try to get us out of the deal.
And how will you get us out? Will that take a court fight?
Well, we'll keep all options on the table, but the bottom line is that we now have a situation where 6 members of City Council don't want this deal. It was sold on false pretenses. It was sold to prevent police and fire layoffs. That never happened. We had enough citizens who asked for a referendum. Even when the emergency of the police and fire layoffs passed, they could have done the thing that they did for their own 4-year terms, which is put it on the ballot and let people have a say on a 30- and 50-year decision. And now they're trying to rush it through right before an election when virtually every single challenger running for city council and a supermajority of council are opposed to this deal. I mean, this is a public asset paid for with tax dollars, and I believe that we should try to live up to what the citizens want us to do.
Let me get to the second part of my question. How do you see your relationship with the port and the leadership at the port?
Well, I don't really think it affects my relationship with the port at all. I mean, I think that they're focused on trying to reposition Bond Hill and the Swift and Commerce deal. They've got some great ideas for Queensgate.
So your argument is with the administration and with the current leadership?
Listen, Dan, my opponent and Mayor Mallory went out and said, if you sign a petition to stop this thing, you're signing a pink slip for a cop and a firefighter. That was not true.
Okay. So it's not you don't have a problem with the port?
No.
Roxanne, on this parking deal, is it a done deal?
I believe it is a done deal, yes.
And why is it a done deal given all of the things that John just said about support among council people, about the question of the $85 million free and clear Why do you think it's still a done deal?
It's a done deal because we entered into the lease with the Port Authority. They have done their due diligence. They are proceeding to actually, with the approval of the board after their expert panels took apart the arrangement, the lease arrangement with the port, took apart the contracts, put it back together, and made improvements that actually serve us and serve citizens better, that they are now proceeding. So I think that there can be a lot of talk about stopping it, but the truth of the matter is, just like with any sort of contractual arrangement, it's moving forward.
If there was an attempt to stop it at this point, what would be the financial, legal implications of that?
Well, there are a lot of financial implications because of all the costs that have been incurred by the port as well as they prepare to issue the bonds. And so that's something that we would have to look at. I think what's also important to recognize is that the Port Authority is a creation of Hamilton County and the city of Cincinnati, and it is for the purpose of economic development. They've been charged with implementing the city's economic development strategy, which is called Go Cincinnati. And so when they are our partner in the lease, they are who we are actually leasing the asset to, not to Xerox, not to Denson. And the relationship with these private contractors is just that. It's through a contract, and which basically has been significantly improved, so that the contract with Denson, who will run the garages, is for 3 years. And the contract with Xerox is for 10 years with 2 10-year options for renewal.
Okay, John, any quick response?
Well, yeah, I mean, my opponent says that we can't get out of the parking deal or the streetcar because it would be expensive, but that's like saying, hey, listen, we're wasting a lot of money, and so because we've wasted a lot of money, you're stuck with our bad decisions. And I think the voters are annoyed by that. I feel that it's been disrespectful to the taxpayer all along and all year. Okay. And I think you don't reward somebody who's made such reckless decisions.
Okay.
And I would argue that these are not reckless decisions, but these are critical economic development decisions and critical economic development investments that actually underpin the continued growth of the city when it comes to attracting businesses, growing jobs, and attracting residents.
Okay. I want to go on to another topic. Both of you have come out opposed to issue 4,
yes,
the changes in the pension. Even if it doesn't pass, assuming it doesn't pass, let's assume it doesn't pass for a moment. For
let's
this
hope
question,
it doesn't pass.
For this question, I can't say it that way.
We can.
Yes, you can, I can. The question is, we're still facing a huge deficit in that pension program. What are you going to do as mayor to turn that around? And secondly, will somebody explain to me, and we're going to begin with Roxanne this time. You know, a lot of us in our 401ks and all sorts of things lost a lot of money in the stock market in 2008, 2009, but the stock market's rebounded. Has the pension fund not rebounded because of that? I mean, so 2 questions. What are you going to do going forward? And I guess my question is, I don't hear the talk about it being rebounded, and therefore I wonder, we have the right managers?
Okay. Well, actually, the pension fund has rebounded, but the problem is that, as anybody knows, that when you see whether it's a 20%, 30%, 50% decline in your asset value, even if you're getting a return that might be 20% or 30% if you should be so lucky, it doesn't put you back at even. So we are still digging out of that.
Okay.
And I think that when you actually look at how the pension fund is being managed, they have been very, very aggressive in terms of looking at the management of it as well as the investment. So that's one thing.
Okay, so what do we need to do going forward?
Well, we know what we need to do. We have already actually dealt with current employees who will be future retirees by changing their age of eligibility, the formula calculation, the years of service requirement, the COLA, which has been capped at 2%. So that's been done for current employees that'll be future retirees. The unfunded liability, however, is a debt from the past. And the majority of it is as a result of 2 things. One is the decline of the markets, which from the recessions, that happened twice in the 90s, and particularly the last one. And the second part that contributes to it is changing of the rate of return estimates. So those have had huge impacts. But we know going forward that what the experts are advising is that while we put in place a 3% compounding COLA in the 90s, and yes, I was mayor when we did it because we were overfunded, now's the time where we have to come to grips and change it back to a simple COLA and index it to inflation and cap it. We also have to step up the city's contribution. We've already stepped it up from 17% of payroll to what will be 24% of payroll next year, but that needs to go to 28% of payroll by 2019.
And how many years does it take to get it back into balance?
What we know is that if you project out and you have a 30-year horizon, is that we will actually begin to see improvements and an increase in terms of our return by 2019, 2020.
John.
Well, Dan, I think your question's correct. If we had indexed a pension at the bottom of the market in 09 of March, we'd be about half the liability that we currently do. And I believe that we need a comprehensive solution that tackles the three things that affect it: investment strategy, benefits, and contribution. Investment strategy is failing. I think we need to reopen that up and get better investment for the reasons that you point out, that we haven't kept pace with the market. Two, I don't think we've done enough in changing benefits on a prospective basis. We have all sorts of abusive practices like double dipping, which they actually reinstated the ability to double dip this year. You know, saving up vacation and sick time and bumping your multiples. We're going to have to ask people on a prospective basis to work longer before they get their benefits. And then we have to buy down a significant chunk of the liability, both on an annual basis, but I've proposed a minimum of $100 million boost to the fund to show resolve to the marketplace. You know, for the first time under my opponent's leadership, the city's credit rating...
$100 million over what period of time?
I'm saying we do $100 million immediately.
Okay.
To show resolve to the marketplace to buy down the liability.
Does a big chunk of that come from the parking deal that you want to kill?
No, I mean, well, I hope not. I mean, that's obviously one option, but I hope that that doesn't happen. Regardless, we have to do it. I think in light of Detroit and in light of the downgrade of our credit, we have to change benefits prospectively, and we have to buy down some of this liability in order to make sure that we don't become a Detroit, and I won't let that happen.
Well, and I think, Dan, we are not going to become a Detroit, and I think that type of hysterical discussion and talk really distracts from the real conversation. Cincinnati is still in the top 16% of all cities in the country in terms of our bond rating. We have the same bond rating as Atlanta, as well as New York City. And so the real issue is how do we move forward in a responsible sort of way that protects the retirement of people who have worked very hard, but at the same time protects taxpayers.
You want to say anything, John? No. Okay, we got to take a break. Welcome back. We continue now with our conversation between John Cranley and Roxanne Qualls, the two candidates for mayor of the city of Cincinnati in the election this Tuesday. Let's begin, I think this time, John, I think we begin over with you. There have been charges against both of you during this race about conflicts of interest. For you, the Price Hill, the Incline Village, more recently this thing about representing Paycor and its move out of the city to Norwood. How important, and in Roxanne's case, it's about being a real estate agent and selling these properties along the streetcar line. How important is that, really, in your case or in both cases? Or is this just election fodder?
No, well, I think it's important in that, you know, Anne Marie Tracy, the Hamilton County judge and former chairwoman of the Ethics Commission, said that my behavior was a model for public officials in disclosing everything I was doing. And I felt it was too much to be counsel and actively engage in real estate at the same time. And I think it was awful when my ethics were applauded and I disclosed everything as I was supposed to do, that it was then turned against me as if I was doing something unethical. And I think that was really low. And this Paycor thing, you know, as the CEO said today, he made the decision, and, you know, if your dad writes you out of the will and you ask a lawyer to do it, you don't blame the lawyer, right? I did some legal work. But I think that the big issue here is disclosure, disclosure, disclosure. And I believe, as I've said, that I am not going to engage in real estate activities as mayor, and I didn't when I was on council because it's too much of an appearance of a conflict. And I think that people want to make sure that they have nothing but confidence that their elected officials are making decisions for the interest of the public and not for personal gain.
Roxanne, in your case, it's about being a real estate agent and selling along the streetcar line, which you support.
Well, I do support the streetcar, and I also, yes, am a real estate agent, and I'm very pleased to actually have represented buyers and sellers throughout the region, not just in the city of Cincinnati. And, you know, was also concerned about whether or not that would constitute a conflict, and so consulted the city solicitor who consulted the Ohio Ethics Commission, and very clearly lacking an ownership interest and lacking a development interest with property along the streetcar line. Representing a client is not a conflict, and that's very clear. And
so in that case, would you say that the parallel with John is him being a lawyer for Paycor, you being a real estate agent for somebody buying or selling? But then this raises this other question. You say you don't have an ownership interest or a development interest. Your charges against John, especially in that commercial just before the primary with Incline Village, is that because he was a developer?
Well, I think that the ownership interest, and this was also raised with another member of council, is that you have to have an ownership interest or a development interest in order to actually, you know, overtly have a conflict of interest. You know, I think that...
Do you think John acted, he presents it as having asked for an opinion, acted on the opinion?
Which he did, and he acted on the opinion so that he could then step down in order to take advantage of city resources in order to support the project.
That's just outrageous. When I left council, we were pursuing a medical office building that fell through because of the conflict. We did not have any request for city funding pending when I was a member of city council, and the project was voted on unanimously, including supported by my opponent, Roxanne. And so it is really, I think, a desperate and cynical move to try to turn this into something when the chairwoman of the Ethics Commission said that my behavior was a model for public officials.
I'm aware of time. I want one last question. You know, elections are always designed with rhetoric to drive the differences, and I would say exaggerate differences sometimes. Both of you are Democrats. Let's begin with John. John, in 4 years, what will be the implications for the city of Cincinnati if Roxanne's elected mayor, from your point of view? And this one I almost have to have a timing. This will about a minute and 15 seconds you got.
Well, I mean, clearly she's intent to spend more money on the streetcar. She said the first thing she'll do is work on phase 2. For the last 6 years, every couple months we hear of a cost overrun, a delay, robbing Peter to pay Paul, taking money from music hall, taking money from neighborhoods, raising property taxes. And I think that story will get worse for the next 8 years, 4 or 8 years. Similarly, you know, if you take assets that produce money for the city, like parking assets, and you sell them off to paper over deficits, you never really get to the fundamental issue. So I think, you know, when you have a lot of bad investment strategies, it's time to get a new investment advisor. And I don't doubt her commitment to public service, but I just think she's gotten it wrong on some of these really big issues. And I think we need someone who's going to focus on people, basic services, jobs, job training, and education.
Roxanne, flip it. If John's elected mayor on Tuesday, what are the implications for the city of Cincinnati for 4 years out?
Now, from the time I actually started serving in office, I have focused on making sure that the city of Cincinnati, with my work, invests both in growing jobs, growing businesses, attracting residents, and that means investing in downtown, over the Rhine, and in neighborhoods. It also means developing the resources so that we can pursue a strategy of investment, and currently, whether that's in streetcar or in neighborhoods such as at Jordan Crossing or in Madisonville, East Price Hill, doesn't matter, that we are growing our revenue base so that we can support basic services. I view the streetcar as critical to that because it will, and we know that from other cities that are successful, it will expand the tax base, it will increase property values, and it will also be an essential element in what is a modern transportation system. In terms of moving forward, I think that if John were elected mayor, what you will see is pulling back, doing things that are safe, and not continuing the progress that we so celebrate today.
Well, I want to thank both of you for being here this morning. and for the way you've conducted yourself in this campaign in terms of talking with each other. And I look forward to seeing both of you on Tuesday night, and we'll see where this goes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. This program and all of our election-related interviews since Labor Day can be reviewed at local12.com. Remember, the polls in Ohio are open on Tuesday from 6:30 in the morning till 7:30 in the evening. In Kentucky, the polls are open from 6 to 6. Be sure to tune in Local 12 Tuesday night for the best election coverage. Have a good week.